Okay, in this video we're going to talk about what's called measures of center and measures of spread when you have a collection of data. Essentially, different ways to interpret a bunch of data that you have, trying to figure out what it means. As an instructor, when I'm grading exams, I have like 30, 40 exams. I want to look at all the students' scores and then kind of figure out what happened in the class. Did students do well? Did they do poorly? Did some do really bad and some did really well? Were they all pretty much right around the same average? All that can be found and looked at using measures of center and spread. One thing I will point out as far as this goes, there's the 043 class, this class, and the 143 class. This 043 class is not necessarily for the long calculation of this stuff. That's actually what you do in 143. We're more going to look at just the interpretation of it. We'll do a few calculations for the easier type ones. But the actual learning of the calculations, is how to do them, is something you do in 143. So we're not going to do some of the calculations here. That being said, if you need practice on how to do the calculations out, feel free to let me know, and I have no problem actually doing those videos. I'm deliberately not doing it now because it's something you're going to do in 143. So I'm kind of leaving that to your 143 instructor to go over. But again, I have no problem doing it. So feel free to let me know and say, hey, could you do a few examples of standard deviation? We'll get to what that is in a minute. And then I'll just make a video of that. It's not a problem at all. Okay. So when you're looking at a bunch of data, you have what's called measures of center, and then you have measures of spread. Measures of center kind of tell you if you have a bunch of data, like a bunch of exam scores. Measures of center tell you what happens in the middle, in the center. Measures of spread kind of tell you how the data looks overall, how spread out it is. And there's different calculations we do in math to figure that out. For measures of center, we have three things that we really look at for the purposes of this class: the mean, the median, and the mode. The mean is just another name for the average. And we all know how to calculate an average, add all the data values up, and then divide by the number of data values. The median is the middle value or values. Or we'll say average of middle values. And we'll get to that in a second. Should write this correctly. Or the average of the middle values based on the data you have. And then lastly, the mode is just the data point or data points that occur the most. We're going to look at an example and do all this out. And the one thing I would add as far as the mode goes, your data does not necessarily have to have a mode. It has to have a data point or data points that occur more than other data points. If all the data points occur the same number of times, then you simply have no mode. And again, we'll look at an example or two to get an idea of what this means, and it'll make more sense. So, to run through an example, donations were collected for a school fundraiser. Jamie was able to collect 7 donations in the amounts of $106, $20, $100, $15, $52, $165, and $184. Jamie wants to show she was a successful contributor to the fundraiser. Which measure of central tendency would best show this and why? So we want to run down the list and find all three measures of center. Well, first off, if I want to find the mean, I know what to do. Add up all the data points and divide by the number of data points, which in this case is 7. So I get 106 plus 20 plus 100 plus 15 plus 52 plus 165 plus 184 equals 642. And then I divide by 7, and I get 91.7. And I would actually point out again, I'm doing all this on my calculator. In your 143 class, They'll show you how to do it on an Excel worksheet. If you need help with doing that, more practice outside of 143, let me know and we can work through that as well. Like I said, here I just want to kind of go through the basics and make sure we understand the basics and what they mean, and then the more rigorous calculations you do in your 143 class. Okay, next I want to find the median. The way it works is you need to find the middle value of the data. So what you do is you take all your data and you line it up smallest to largest, which means I get 15, then 20, then 52, 100, 100, 100, then 100, then 106, 165, and lastly, I'm out of room, but 184, and that should be all 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now the way it works is the median is the middle value or middle values of your data. If you have an odd number of data points, we have 7 here, you just find the middle value, that's your median. If you have an even number of data points, you take the 2 middle values and you average them. In this case, since we have an odd number, the middle value should be the 4th right here. 3 there, that's in the middle. So my median is 100. Lastly, I check the mode. The mode is the data point or data points that occur the most, as long as all the data points don't occur the same number of times. In this case, each data point occurs 1 time, so there's no differentiation between them, so there's no mode. If these were all my data points, but I randomly got an 8th donation for $52, then my mode would be 52, because 52 occurs twice, everything else occurs once. That's not true here, but just to give you an idea. If I got a 9th donation for $15, then my mode would be 15 and 52, because both of those occur twice, everything else occurs once. It's the data point or data points that occur more than everything else. And again, sometimes you get no mode. So there's that. So now, assuming I'm fundraising and I want to show off to people and tell them, look, I am a good fundraiser, I did a good job, which measure of center should I use? The mode is clearly out because there's no mode. What sounds better? To say my mean was 91 or to say my median was 100? If I'm trying to impress people and tell them, hey, look how good of a whatever it is you're doing, whatever this person was doing, collecting donations, I want to make myself look as good as possible, I should definitely use the median of 100 because it's bigger, it sounds better. And again, this is what any type of data analyst, people collecting a bunch of data and looking at it, this is what they do. Find your measures of center. There's actually other ones, but right now we're focusing on these 3. The mean, the median, the mode. Look at them and say, okay, how do I use this to interpret my data? What does a mean of 91.7 mean? What does a median of 100 mean? Sometimes, based off of your data, it's better to use the mean. Other times, it's better to use the median. All things being honest, I don't actually use the mode very much, but there are times when you would use it. So, moving on. In a store flyer, 6 different laptops are advertised at the following prices. And here, because I know I'm probably going to think about the median, I'm going to write them in ascending order. So we have 198, then 299, then 329, then 349, then 375, then 495. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6. Yes. A store manager wants to advertise that the average cost of laptops is more reasonable than the competing stores. Which measure of central tendency would best show this? So, I run down my list. Mean, median, and mode. By the way, all 6 of those are different, so we know there's no mode again. Find the mean. I add them all up. 198 plus 299 plus 329 plus 349 plus 375 plus 495 equals 2045. Then I divide by 6, the number of data points, and I get 340.83. To find the median, here we have 6 data points, so I get the 2 middle values. Now I average those. So 329 plus 349 divided by 2, and I get 339, which is actually pretty obvious. So now, a store manager wants to advertise that the average cost of laptops is more reasonable than the competing stores. Which measure of central tendency would best show this? And in this case, there's no mode. Both the mean and the median are essentially the same. I guess you could argue the median is slightly less. It's also a round number as opposed to a decimal here. So you could argue that you should use the median, but there's also the mathematical part of me that says that would be somewhat disingenuous. Because again, when we say average, from a mathematical perspective, average means mean. So we actually are implying the mean, which is the 340.83. So I would personally say that's being a little bit unclear if you said the average was 339. But again, from an advertising perspective, this one is a round number and it's slightly less than that. So if you're trying to look better, you'd probably use this one, but as a math person, I wouldn't like that. Average means mean. So there we go. During the week, the daily low temperatures were, again, I'll put them in order, 45, 45, 48, 51, 51, 52. Which measure of central tendency would best represent the data? Here, looking really quickly, 45, 51, both of those occur twice, so here I actually get a mode, and I get 2 values from the mode, 45 and 51. Now, calculate the mean. So let's see, 45 plus 45, which is just 90, plus 51 plus 48 plus 51 plus 52 equals 292 divided by 6, which is 48.7. The median, here again, that. Now I have 2 middle values, average them out. If you average these up, it should be 49.5, but just for fun. 49.5. And now, which measure of center best describes the data? Here I would argue it's kind of a personal preference, meaning both of these are reasonably close together. They're within 1 degree, and they kind of tell you the average was right around 48, which means some days it was maybe a degree or 2 less. It was. Other days, it was a degree or 2 more. That's kind of what an average means. It's a middle value. So we understand there are values on both sides of it. So I would argue both of these work well, but you could also argue with this mode here, where you have essentially the lowest temperature and the highest temperature, then what this tells you is that, well, some days it was colder, some days it was warmer. So now you get a better idea. Okay, apparently on Monday and Tuesday there was a cold streak going through, so it was 45. But then by Wednesday it warmed up, and Wednesday and Thursday it was warmer, and it was 51 in the morning. So it differentiates the data better. Here, again, if you say the mean or the median is right around 49 or 50, you understand that's the middle value. But does that mean it was a few degrees cooler than 48 some days and a few degrees warmer than 48 some days? or was it a lot cooler some days and a lot warmer the other days? So in this case, you might actually argue the mode is better. Personally, again, from a math perspective, I would probably list all three. And again, I don't say this as an answer to your 143 type questions and all that. I like completeness in the math I do, so there's no hidden stuff going on. So I would probably list all three to get the greatest picture possible. But whatever your 143 instructor says as far as her interpretation goes, just go with that. It's completely fine. As long as you can calculate these out, you'll be good. Okay, and this video was too long, so now I'm going to stop it and make another video going over standard deviation.